Hello and welcome to the show. We start this week's FailRace episode with purple petrol on Forza Motorsport. And a weird thing has happened. The Austin, having gone into the pit lane, have a pit stop, has come out without a driver. I can't say I've come across this particular weirdness from Forza. You can see when other cars turn up, they do still have drivers in them. I mean, we've seen it on GTA occasionally where, certainly like AI traffic cars, the driver vanishes, but I can't say I've ever seen Forza have the driver just vacate the car. Dragon Alex is up next on War Thunder, and they have found an unusual occurrence. This is a lowrider plane. Yep, it's just, well, as I say, it's bouncing on the suspension. It's not. It's slightly falling through the floor, and then as either the propellers hit the, I think it might be the propellers hit the ground, or a bit of the undercarriage hits the ground, it pings it back up again. But it does just look like we've got a bomber on hydraulics. Speaking of planes, Nicole on Just Cause 3 is bailed out of a crashing one when it doesn't actually explode as you would expect. I mean, Rico's fine, of course, because he's pretty much invincible, but the plane is just spinning its way down the road, as you do. Then it starts to kind of sink its way into the ground as well, which, I mean, it's a magical, mystical plane that is now it's now gone out of sight, and somehow all of that didn't end up in a massive explosion. We're on to WRC for our next clip, racing around the incredibly challenging snowy rally stage. You know, we know what the snowbanks can be like. If you run a little bit wide, you can get in all sorts of trouble, and sure enough, coming up towards the finish line here, gets things a little bit wrong with the Legacy. It grabs the bank, flips the car, and it is across the line. Upside down. I mean, it was barely even across the line. It sort of hit the outside of the finish gantry, but enough of the nose went across for it to count. Speaking of close finishes, Converse Foxes on Midnight Club 3 gets wiped out by an AI car, manages to recover it. So far, I mean, not ideal as they're heading towards the finish line, but gets away and get wiped out by a second AI car. That one, a bit more serious, pings it in a wall. There is not very far to go in this race whatsoever. They have some nitro to burn. Two AI cars crash. The Corvette leaps, bounces off a railing, and it is across the line, upside down, for a victory. That's one of the best finishes I've seen in a long, long time. Twinny is up next on Wreckfest. They are at the Wrecknado circuit, an incredibly destructive track, or can be an incredibly destructive track, and it's certainly going to prove this time around as they run towards the crossover point. They manage to smack an AI car so hard it gets launched to, well, a completely different part of the circuit. That is a hell of a hit. I mean, I've raced around this track plenty, and I've seen some big crashes. This might be one of the hardest hits. You can see the AI car coming in from left. It bounces off the roof of the El Matador, and I think that kind of helps because it's a little bit in the air. It gets absolutely fired. That is a serious, serious catapult that the player managed to do on that one. Stealth is up next, also on Wreckfest, heading up towards the Hellride side where they get launched. Now, we've seen cars manage to land on the sign. This one doesn't land on the sign, but amazingly lands on the bridge or lands on the ramp. That's very lucky. I mean, normally that sort of a hit will kill. It depends on what damage you're running on, but normally that sort of a hit will kill your vehicle. But yeah, so you can see perfectly timed, perfectly positioned to launch the player car really high up into the air. Doesn't quite get the forward momentum to either get over the sign or to land on the sign. It just kind of hits the sign on the way down. But yeah, to manage to land back on the ramp is so lucky. I mean, it's done some damage, but that is incredibly lucky. Principled Foe is up next on SnowRunner. Now, their truck has managed to get a sign wedged in it. SnowRunner doesn't like it when signs are wedged, and I mean, this truck becomes full-on possessed. I think it's more of a poltergeist than a sign. And this is a big, heavy truck, and it is being thrown around like a toy, and around we go. The sign does get released, but the truck has fallen over, and all the logs have fallen out. Mint Memes up next on a set of Corsa with a very near miss, as I don't know whether it's an AI or a player, as the Lamborghini made a mistake. It's an easy mistake to make, just ping gets a little bit wide, fires across the track. The player initially anticipates it. It looks like the Lamborghini's just going to run along the wall. I don't quite know how and why it ends up. I don't know whether they're trying to recover it or where there's damage or what, but it ends up being fired out across the track, and that's so close. That is so close at full racing speed to an incredible accident. Sapling is up next on the crew 2. They are trying to complete one of their slalom objectives using a Cobra. Okay, sensible enough. They get it set up through this next section. However, they are not going quite fast enough for the jump. They clonk a building and fall off, managing to slide down the side of it and wedged. It's well parked, kind of. It found the one little bit of a gap between motorway and building. Slide down. You're not going to be completing the slalom at this race. It's an impressive stunt, but yeah, it's not gonna complete your slalom challenge. RC Cookie is up next on Beam. They are driving around in a bowline, as you do. Very, very fast, this one, and it's easy to make mistakes with the car. And sure enough, they get things a little bit wrong. They overcorrect on the steering, and it's off into the scenery it goes for a very big accident. The impressive thing about this one, though, is how the vehicle comes to rest, because it's been caught by a tree. It has been caught by a tree perfectly, and in fact, from most angles, you can barely even... It looks like the car has become the tree. You can barely see the tree in there. It's... yeah, another impressive parking job. And finally, we are on to Stunt Derby with... Well, this is an AI car. So this is an AI car driving along, I think. It's a fairly straightforward circuit. Gets a bit more speed than the van, managing to car hat perfectly. Well, not quite perfectly on the van because it's slowly sliding off. But never fear, for there is another AI car here to help it, and now we're just balancing. Now we're just balancing the Golf, and then we're going to go for a transfer from the Golf, from the van, sorry, onto the saloon car. There we are. Bot 76 has been deposited onto the car and then deposited off the circuit. Even if that was a player, I don't think there's anything you could do. Once you were stuck on the roof of the van, there is no recovery from that one. That is one of the most impressive car hats we've ever seen. We've never had a transfer between vehicles before, but there we go. That is going to be it for this episode. If you have clips you'd like to submit to this series, and we do always need more clips for this series, you can via a Google form. Be linked to it in the description. All the rules and how it works can be found on there. That, though, is going to be it from me. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.